Dramatic testimony of the former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, has jaws dropping. Moments like that, and she took aim at the Prime Minister, alleging she was booted from her job as the Attorney General because she refused to bend to immense pressure, she said, from senior government officials to help the Quebec construction giant SNC-Lavalin avoid a criminal trial. Now there are calls for the RCMP to investigate. Ms. Wilson-Raybould says 11 different people, including the Prime Minister, pressured her or her staff on 10 separate occasions or 10 phone calls to make a deal with SNC-Lavalin to avoid bribery and fraud charges. Now, the Prime Minister denies her characterization of events, saying he and his staff always acted appropriately. Was there undue pressure on her? Was it just part of the job? Should the Prime Minister resign, like Andrew Scheer has demanded? Let's find out. Joining me now is the Public Safety Minister, Ralph Goodale. Sir, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Let's start with this. The Prime Minister says, basically, she has a different view of it. Do you believe Jody Wilson-Raybould when she says that she had undue pressure and inappropriate pressure?
Well, pressure is obviously in the eye of the beholder. There was clearly a very strong discussion going on about issues related to SNC-Lavalin. You think about it, though, over a period of, say, 4 months or so, if there were 10 encounters over a space of 4 months.
10 phone calls, 10 meetings.
But not involving all the same people.
Right.
So it was a sporadic kind of conversation that was going on. Is that excessive over a 4-month period? I suppose it depends on the intensity of the issue and how important it was.
Why, if she has to tell the Prime Minister on September 17th, the answer is no. And the Prime Minister says, okay, I'm not going to direct you. But then a very serious campaign that according to Jody Wilson-Raybould, includes Gerald Butts, the former Principal Secretary, Katie Telford, the Chief of Staff, some of the most senior people in the Prime Minister's office, the Finance Minister, and the Clerk of the Privy Council, who she claims made veiled threats. Why did they keep pressuring the Attorney General when she had already said no? Doesn't no mean no?
Well, there was a very serious issue before the government. The issue in relation to whether a Canadian company would survive or not, and obviously a vigorous discussion was being undertaken. But the clear thing from her testimony is nobody crossed that line of giving her an order that thou shalt do this.
Why, if there's nothing happened, why did Gerald Butts resign? Because normally if you resign because something bad happened. Well, he said, I'm resigned, but nobody did anything wrong.
Let's see what he says in his testimony in a few days. But in his letter, he made 2 points. Number one, that he had become a lightning rod and was distracting the government from the other business of government that needs to go on. So better that he step out of the limelight. And number two, that he wanted to be in a position to vigorously defend himself against accusations that have been made against him and his integrity.
I appreciate that. But if he's done nothing wrong, he's not a lightning rod. He just says, this is wrong, here's my proof. Well, and if the Prime Minister releases cabinet confidence for her, he would do the same for Gerald Butts, his Principal Secretary. And if there's no there, why resign?
Well, let's listen to what he has to say. Give him a chance to present his perspective on the events. And Canadians will have an opportunity, and there will also be other witnesses, obviously, that are going to be called in the process. And the Ethics Commissioner is conducting an inquiry that the government has welcomed to examine this from the perspective of an officer of Parliament.
Do you, Minister Goodale, believe that the Prime Minister should waive complete privilege so Jody Wilson-Raybould can speak everything, not stop at the day she resigned? Should she be able to get the privilege waived so she can do that? And why not waive it?
Well, the privilege that has been waived, both in terms of any solicitor-client restrictions, which there may or may not be in these circumstances, and the privileges of cabinet confidence, all of those have been removed for the period over which the complaint has been made. That period from September to the end of the year.
But she wants further. She resigned after that time. Why not waive the privilege or the cabinet confidence so she can explain why she finally took the decision to resign?
The allegation of anything that was untoward or undue influence or pressure occurred in the period while she was Attorney General. That's the period over which the complaint has been made, and that's the period over which the privilege has been waived.
I would suggest to you that she believes that there's material evidence that she cannot talk about, which she mentioned, that happened after that. Many people want a public inquiry, so there's not the perception of bias. Is that not a fair request?
Well, let's approach this in a methodical, step-by-step, workmanlike way. It's one thing to sort of throw everything on the table as a chaotic stew and hope for the best. But it seems to me that this situation is being pursued in a very methodical, systematic way. Let the Justice Committee do its work. You've also got the separate inquiry that's been done by the Ethics Commissioner. If something further is required at some stage, that decision can be taken.
What about the RCMP? What about the RCMP?
The RCMP are a totally independent institution. They do not consult the government about whether or when to investigate anyone. If there's something in the public domain that they think requires an investigation, they will do it.
Should Jody Wilson-Raybould remain in caucus? What's the debate going on? Should she still be part of your party?
This has obviously been a very sad and difficult and painful experience, I'm sure, on all sides. It has not been pleasant when you have these kinds of disputes and arguments and very intense feelings. I would hope that there can be some kind of reconciliation, but whether that is possible, a caucus depends on internal cohesion and belief in one another and trust and confidence.
But she said she doesn't have confidence in the cabinet table.
It's clearly been shaken, and if things are going to be repaired, it's going to take an awful lot of hard work. Whether that can be done or not, I don't know. I hope there's a solution, but I think some further reflection has to be given on that.
Last question on this. There had been this whisper campaign that she was, quote, difficult to deal with on a number of key issues. You were around the cabinet table. Was she difficult? She
is a very strong person who knows her mind, knows where she wants to go and what she wants to do. I guess some people might recoil at that a bit. I don't. I think she was a very vigorous colleague. We would disagree on topics. We always didn't come to the same conclusion about do this or do that on a particular policy question. But our relationship was always a very positive one, not always on the same page, but vigorously respectful.
I got to leave it there. Minister Goodale, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Glad to be here.